When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
In Fairfield County, something new comes across my desk every day. Crimes are committed, cases are solved, and a community is made safe by the hardworking employees of the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office.
Welcome to This Week with Sheriff Dave Phalen, a weekly broadcast brought to you by LSN, our local radio supporters in Fairfield County, the Fairfield Christian Church, J.T. Burcham, and a lot of great help that he provides these students in learning to bring a program to this community. And we're welcome to have your favorite sheriff and my favorite sheriff and my boss, Sheriff Dave Phalen.
Well,
How you doing, Sheriff?
Well, it's good to see you, Lieutenant. We're kind of switching things around today, aren't we?
We are switching roles. It gives us an opportunity to talk to Sheriff Phalen about some of the events and what's going on in Fairfield County and his history in Fairfield County as sheriff. So, Sheriff, you come from the Columbus Police Department a number of years ago. You want to share with us a few minutes about your background?
Well, actually, my career in law enforcement started with the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C. And at that time, I worked for a radio station, WBBY, and the Washington, D.C. Police Department was actually advertising in Columbus for police officers. And that time, they were having a lot of civil disorder. There was a lot of things going on in Washington, D.C. So I went down and took the test, went through the background, and was hired, and actually moved my family to Washington, D.C. And that's kind of how it began. Worked there for a period of time. I was homesick.
Yeah.
Missed my family, missed my parents, and then tested for the Columbus Police Department, joined the Columbus Police Department.
Came back home,
and so it was just a wonderful time, and served there in a lot of different capacities. And Washington really was very helpful for me because it was really a good place to learn how to be a police officer because they had just about anything you can imagine. And so went through my career in the Columbus Police Department, and then an opportunity came up to run for sheriff in Fairfield County, and have been doing that now for the last, amazingly, 15 years.
15 years at Fairfield County.
It's hard to believe, isn't it?
Well, it's a great department. You've done a great job as sheriff in Fairfield County, and I think one of the things that you always implement too, and we're a community-based law enforcement agency, and one of those foundational things that you brought back from Washington, and you tell the story often in our teaching of some of these classes, is the story of the officer that made the stop. You made, I think, a stop. A guy was littering, and it really wasn't important to the sergeant.
Right. I had a situation, and I hadn't been on the Washington, D.C. Police Department very well, and I came from kind of a lower middle-class neighborhood. We had we didn't have a lot of money, but it was a safe area. So I joined the Washington, D.C. Police Department. I'm 22 years old, and I'm assigned to a place called 13 Precinct, which is really one of the tougher precincts in Washington, D.C. At least it was at that time. And I'm driving in my cruiser, and a man in front of me, I notice he throws out like a bag of McDonald's or something. It hits the sidewalk and it's blowing around. And I'm thinking, well, what's the deal here? And I went ahead, turned my red light on, pulled him over, and went up to the car. And I said, "Sir, the reason I'm stopping you is for littering." And he was saying, littering? He says, "You've got to be kidding me. Look at this place. There's trash all over the place. There's prostitutes up on the corner. There's drug dealers." He said, "And you're going to stop me for littering?" I said, "Yes, I am." And I went ahead and gave him a ticket for littering. Well, at that time, at the end of the shift, you would come back and give your tickets, give your reports to a big Irish sergeant. He was at the desk and he was checking through my reports, and then he came to that littering ticket, and And he said, Phalen, we don't see many of those kind of tickets down here. I mean, we got a lot of bigger things going on. I hope you're not harassing people and those kind of things. So the message was kind of clear. The citizens didn't want those kind of things enforced, and the police department didn't. But what I found out over the years, if you do not address the little things, the big things are going to follow.
Right.
And we are very fortunate in Fairfield County. I mean, you hear a lot of newscasts across the nation how communities are upset with their police departments, but we have very strong support in Fairfield County for the men and women of the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office. And I think it speaks volumes about the people within the Sheriff's Office. We have great deputies, we have great detectives, and you're the head of the commander of the Detective Bureau. We have great civilians. I have a great assistant with Callie Roberts, and it makes it a joy to come to work every day.
Sure.
And we're very appreciative of the citizens. I'm appreciative of the community that support us.
Yeah. And I think you've implemented a lot of those things that foundation in Washington. When you first took office at the Sheriff's Office, you implemented policies and procedures. You came in and you explained to the deputies and myself and everyone there how important community-based was. We had some trainings on it, and we talked a little bit about Robert Pio and his foundation of law enforcement. Talk a little bit about your relationship with Chief Deputy Jerry Perigo.
Well, Jerry Perigo is my chief deputy, and we have served together now probably 40 years. And we met early on in our careers with the Columbus Police Department. We were kind of promoted up the ranks together. And one of the things that I knew about Chief Perigo is he was really a good administrator. And really he was stronger than I am as far as the putting together reports and as far as policies and procedures and things like that. So what I wanted to do when I came into the sheriff's office, I wanted to bring him with me. And the timing worked out, so he was able to leave Columbus and then join us at the sheriff's office. So it's really been a good match. I really enjoy the community part of the sheriff's office and getting out, meeting and doing those things. And Chief Perigo is really good on budgets. He's good on administrative tasks. So it's been a really good partnership all these years.
Yeah, we spent several weeks with the chief in his office, and we really implemented and changed our directives for the deputies to follow. That it gives them some guidance and some directions through our directives to make things really clearer than it would be if there was no directives. And I think that's really helped in a lot of situations.
Yeah, I think so too, Lieutenant. There's really three things that you need to have a successful law enforcement agency. You need good people, and we have great people. You need to have good supervision, good leadership. But thirdly, and a lot of people don't always think about this, you need good policies and procedures. You need good directives to kind of say, we're going to be handling these things the same way. This is what we expect from our people that work in the jail. This is our expectations of the detectives. It's kind of written out. And this is our expectations on the people that are assigned to the patrol division. So you've got to have strong policies and procedures, directives, just good standard operating procedures.
Yes, you certainly do, and we continue to build on those as we go along. A couple things that I just wanted to touch it a little bit is what's probably your most memorable. What happened to you in your 45 years in law enforcement? Anything stand out? Any couple things stand out to you?
Well, I think there's a lot of things. I think one thing comes to mind early in my career. In May of 1971, when I was with the Washington, D.C. Police Department, they had the largest mass demonstration in the history of Washington, D.C. at that time. And people came to protest about the war in Vietnam. And so I'm this 22-year-old patrolman, and I'm assigned to that. In fact, just about the entire department is assigned to the task of controlling this large volume of people, protesters, that came into Washington, D.C. And I can remember, I don't know whether I was on Pennsylvania Avenue or I don't remember the road, but I can remember standing there, and they had officers stationed maybe every 25, 35 feet apart, and just saying, look at all these people. And that evening, a lot of rioting started, a lot of fires were set, and there was mass arrests, and at some point the jail filled up. So there was no longer anywhere to take all these people involved in civil disobedience. And we started taking them to a ball field, and they were putting them in the ball field. But I'll never forget that, because it was just such an event, and I just have never seen so many people, nor have I seen things, nor have I ever seen it again, where you had, people setting fires, people throwing rocks, those kind of things. It was really a very difficult time. So that really comes to mind. Probably another thing that really I hadn't been on Columbus. Well, I've been on Columbus probably 4 or 5 years, and I can remember there was a number of children that they were on a raft in a abandoned swimming pool. The raft flipped over, and they died. And so I can remember how difficult that was to kind of come to terms with as a patrolman. And so that really is something that, as you know, those things can follow you a long time. And yeah, they're very tragic events, and that's one of the more difficult things about law enforcement. We do have to deal with tragedies that are very sad and very devastating to families. We also get to do a lot of things that are very helpful.
We sure do. And one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about with you is our Community Watch program. How we've implemented volunteers into the service to be able to help do that. We've began with a lot of our jail ministry and helping out with the jail. Some of those things we'd like to touch on just a little bit, if we could. Let's start with the jail. I know that the jail is something new that you've really never dealt with until you got into law enforcement.
Right. Our jail is filled with a lot of people that have had a lot of problems in their life. One of the things that I felt could be helpful is to go ahead and build a solid jail ministry, and we've done that. We have at any given time, on any given day, different churches that come into the jail to help minister to the prisoners. And the prisoners have an option, or the inmates have an option. They can participate or not participate. But our jail chaplain, Tom Underwood, has done just a terrific job of getting people together and mobilizing the churches. It seems to me we have probably 12 different churches within Fairfield County that are part of that ministry. So they've really done a terrific job. Lieutenant Mark Churchill, our jail commander, has done wonderful things. We have now a reentry coalition that when people get out of jail, there's some assistance to help them kind of navigate from that change.
And I think Tom has really helped facilitate responsibilities a deputy would be asked to do. If an inmate comes to you and says, hey, can you help me with this? Tom's really been able to take that role on.
He really has. And one of the neat things that happen, a lot of times when people get out of jail, they walk out of the jail, they don't have a place to live, they don't have a job to go to. So Tom has really been part of that connection to say, hey, when you get out of jail, give me a call or a number of the churches in the area to kind of help you navigate that life change from a jail setting back into the community.
Yep. Community Watch began not too long ago. We'll talk a little bit about that maybe coming up on our next program.
Sure.
Next week with Sheriff Dave Phalen. This is Tim Voris, again stepping in for Sheriff Dave Phalen. We're switching roles again this week just to give the Sheriff a chance to talk a little bit and us to ask the questions. So thanks again for being with us. The time on the wall says it's time to go. Be safe, buckle up, and we'll see you next week with Sheriff Dave Phalen.
Oh, look, a redhead.
Staring contest.
You still got it.
I know.
Come alive with the forest.
The dad was cute.
You were looking right at us.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.